Thank you for watching another episode of the Boat Geeks. If you are liking what you're finding here at our channel, please hit the thumbs up below.
And please like and subscribe so you don't miss a future episode.
Absolutely. And you can comment too. Feel free to comment.
Yeah, we love to hear what you think.
Thank you.
One of the whole reasons for creating this podcast is to educate people.
Yes.
And this particular topic, you had never heard about it until you heard Kevin's story.
Yeah.
I had never heard about it either. And every boater in the country, in the world,
should know,
needs to know about this. So
absolutely.
I think we should probably just dive.
Let's dive
right in. And then we'll have Kevin back to talk about all this other fun stuff.
All right. So, Kevin, in 1999, an incident happened that changed your life. Can you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah. Without going into all of the details of the accident itself, because you can see those resources are available. But, you know, our son Lucas was electrocuted while he was swimming in the water he was heading to get out of the boat. Out of the water near a boat that was leaking 120 volts AC into the water.
From beautiful Port Townsend, Washington, a Victorian seaport on the Salish Sea, and recorded aboard the motor vessel Traveler. It's the Boat Geeks with Daeron and Darren.
Welcome to another episode of the Boat Geeks. I'm your host, Darren.
And I'm your other host, Darren.
Today, we are joined by Kevin Ritz, Marine Systems Program Director for the Northwest School of Wood and Boat Building, American Boat and Yacht Council Master Technician, which includes 6 certifications. We can get into those shortly. Nationally recognized Marine, Electrical, and Corrosion Instructor and Consultant, has been teaching marine systems since 2008, and he was awarded the Life Service Award from the American Boat and Yacht Council in 2015. Kevin, welcome to the Boat Geeks.
Thank you.
It's good to have you.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, we've been since, I think even prior to actually launching in January, we were talking to you about doing this and wanting to have you on. You were instantly on our short list of guests that we wanted to have on the podcast.
And it just helps. It's convenient that Kevin and Cheryl live on their boat here,
moored in our very
Port Ludlow Marina.
That's right.
On a very cool,
beautiful Port Ludlow Marina.
It is beautiful here, but your boat is Kinzua.
Kinzua.
And what does that name mean?
I have been told that it means fish.
Oh.
In a native tongue. I have not had the opportunity to really research that, but we like the name, and of course, you know, we decided to stick with it. That's what she came with.
And it's kind of appropriate for the intent, the purpose of the building of that boat.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I kind of, you know, hey, we dove into the boat. You know, this is the Boat Geeks. Our first question usually to our guests is, what makes you a boat geek? Or what do you love about boats? I would love to hear that story, but then also I would love to talk about your boat as well. So,
sure.
Can you take us back to where your interest in boats came from?
Oh, my goodness. My interest in boats came from my dad, who actually was not much of a boater himself, but his parents were missionaries in Thailand for 38 years.
Oh, wow.
And so before the war, we talk about World War II here, they traveled to Thailand via boat, and it took months, right, back in the day. And then they traveled back after the war broke out, and they went back after the war was. So he actually circumnavigated the world 3 different times on boats. So he always was talking about stories about boats. And so that kind of piqued my interest. And then I'm sure, well, I shouldn't say I'm sure, but the book Dove. Have you read the book Dove?
No. Who wrote
that? Robin Graham wrote that book. And he was at the time the youngest person to sail around the world by himself.
Okay.
And he did it, I think, you know, I think he did it right because he took his time and stopped all over the place.
Nice.
And
so how long did it take?
Oh, I can't remember exactly, like 3 years or something.
Didn't they make that into a movie?
They may have.
So this is Dove by
Robin Graham.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I was young, the books that got me into sailing were Horatio Hornblower and some of the classic stuff like that. But I will have to check out this boat.
Yeah.
This book.
Yeah.
So
And so I just kind of, Cheryl would say I'm a romantic and everything. And just the idea of boating and cruising and the lifestyle and all that kind of stuff. And then when I went to camp, I think I was 8 years old. I didn't want to do anything but sail, and I got on the boat. I didn't know how to sail, but as soon as I got on it, I figured it out, and that's all I wanted to do. And so that's kind of, I became addicted way back then, and it's hasn't gotten better.
So a lifetime.
That's
absolutely,
so cool.
Absolutely.
And here we are. We came into boating kind of late.
Well, certainly I did. Although now looking back, I certainly had an interest from very young. Again, I don't know how many times our viewers or listeners want to hear it, but I was potentially conceived on a boat. So from a very young time in my life, I think I was interested in around boats. I remember
it's in your DNA, man.
My father's father, my grandpa, would always bring used boats to my dad. He would buy them. He'd find a deal somewhere and bring it to my dad, but they always needed to be repaired, so it would always piss off my dad. But boats were always in my family. I grew up in Santa Cruz, always around boats, and so I love hearing that. That from such a young time. I did come into it late. I didn't really pick this level of interest up until way late in my life. So now, as a young man, you're out there teaching yourself the ropes, so to speak, and literally. How did that progress? I also believe and also think that my interest in a lot of that boats is romantic. The whole idea of, I love the marina at nighttime. It reminds me of like, I don't know, Pirates of the Caribbean or whatever, just all the lights on in the boats, and we sit out in our cockpit and just love the marina at night, and it is a romantic thing. And the idea of cruising and boating. So how did that progress as you were getting older? What was your first real boat purchase and so forth?
Well, my first boat, my parents were missionaries as well, and we lived we traveled in a number of places, but we were in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. And we were there for a couple of years, and my parents thought I might be better off going back to the States for high school, which I agreed with at the time. But as soon as I got back to the States, I kind of changed my mind on that. But anyway, long and short, I got a Catalina 23, I think it was, with a swing keel, and it was sitting in a swamp. And it was green, as you can imagine, and it was on a little lake there in Florida, and I put all my time and effort in getting that boat cleaned up, fixed up, and just started. And then I dreamed of sailing that boat down to Haiti, which I never did. Yeah. But it probably wasn't the right boat to go down there anyway. But with a swing keel, I thought, it's pretty shallow in places down. It could be a good boat, but that never happened. But, sailing in Haiti. And then when I came back to the States, Cheryl and I bought a Hunter. And then from a Hunter, then we spent a lot of time on that, weekends and everything with the whole family. And then we bought a Newport 30. And then we moved aboard the Newport 30 because we thought, what a cool lifestyle. We wanted to go cruising someday, so we're going to save money doing this, right? And then our daughter, we decided we were going to have one more. We had 2 kids at the time, decided we were going to have one more. Hoping we'd have a daughter, which we did, and we needed to get a bigger boat, so then we moved up to a Catalina 36, and lived aboard that in the Portland area for a long time, and that was a great live aboard. It was a really cool boat.
Were you guys live aboard in Portland area at the same time?
Probably not. We were in the same marina, but at different times.
Really?
Yeah,
You were at Castleman's?
No, I moved. Well, I thought. Is Castleman's on the slough?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Multnomah Channel.
Right. And,
right.
We were at Scappoose Marina.
Okay, just down.
Kind of next door.
Yeah, exactly. Neat.
Yeah. But that was, I moved aboard a couple, maybe 2 months before 9/11.
Okay. Yeah. And I do not recall the year we had been aboard for a while there. I don't remember the year that we actually moved aboard. I'm terrible with time. Terrible with time.
Hey, we all are as we get older. So now, it sounds like you're full on board with boats. You're moving. You're growing up in boats, getting bigger and bigger. Your family on board. You're wanting to live aboard. That's awesome. I wish I did that. But anyway, it's never too late.
You still have time.
Never too late. Yes,
You have
absolutely.
time.
There's a lot of boats out there.
Absolutely, there are. So, and then, how did you get to the boat that you currently have, which is a phenomenal boat, and I want to talk about that. But how did you get to this point?
Well, after the accident, which we're going to talk about, I recognized that there was no consistency in the way boats were wired and everything. And long and short of that led to this boat was a friend of a friend bought this boat, and I had decided to start fixing every boat's electrical system boat by boat, and I quickly realized I wasn't going to get very far in life doing that.
Sure.
But this was one of the boats that I rewired and did a complete rewire on the boat, and really enjoyed the boat. And the lady that owned the boat, later on, she decided she wanted me, for some reason, she only trusted me. She wanted me to skipper the boat for her during the summer on coming up from Portland up to the San Juan. So I did that for, I called it Driving
trip.
Miss Davy and Daisy. And that worked out really well. And then she wanted me to have the boat. And eventually when I took the position here at the Northwest School of Wood and Boatbuilding, start a marine systems program, I needed a place to live. And I started looking around. And at the cost of living up here, it was a great excuse to buy a boat. So that's how that came about. And she was so happy and tearful and everything when I told her that I was interested. And and she wanted me to have the boat very much. So
it was destiny. Now, just real quick, let's rewind the whole idea of you skippering that boat up here. I'm fascinated, and finally I get to talk to somebody who's done that route from. I'm assuming you came out from the Columbia there and went up. Tell me about that voyage.
With that particular boat, she didn't want it on the ocean. She trucked it, but I did that trip many times. From
many
Portland.
times.
Oh yeah, lots and lots of times, because it was just one of those challenges that, the Columbia River Bar and all the mystique around the Columbia River Bar and, Graveyard of the Pacific and all of that.
I have family that died there.
Oh, is that right? I'm sorry to hear that. But
Wow.
I didn't know them, but it was my stepfather, who I'm very close to, but his father and his uncle died going out there. They were fishing
on the bar,
drinking, and didn't come back. And so, I mean, it's obviously a lot of history of danger, and so it always. I'm always very interested in that voyage. Do you have anything you can share with us in terms of that trip? Nervousness,
Oh yeah, I mean, your first time. I mean, the reality is crossing the Columbia River Bar. I call it. I'm sorry, a pucker moment. Right?
Yeah, no kidding.
It's just you got to be prepared.
The biggest
it's all
of
about
all
the
time.
tides,
Squeaky bum time.
Yeah, and you just really got to be prepared for that. And the other thing I guess I would say, as you're cruising up the coast, if things suddenly get comfortable, you're going the wrong way because everything's a beam. You're always taking, waves from the side and everything. And I've had some beautiful, I don't know, I've done it dozens of times, and just some fantastic nights out on the ocean. And I usually would take the 30 fathom line to get away from the crab pots. The Crab Pot Association, the Towing Association have an agreement that they won't put pots on the 30 fathom. So it's a great way. And it leads right into the straits there. And then coming in through Hole in the Wall. I don't know if you're familiar with that. That's gorgeous. Actually, I was out there just a couple weekends ago. I was teaching out at Nia Bay for the high school, and we went out to Cape Flattery for the first time. I was able to see Hole in the Wall from land. I've only seen it from the water before. It was awesome. I mean, it's just, it's really, really
Have you ever
beautiful.
done the Oregon offshore?
I have not. No.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
What is this?
Well, it's a sailboat race.
Okay.
And I'm not entirely certain of the course, but I believe it's Portland to what is it?
Victoria, I think.
Yeah,
It's
Portland
to Victoria. I've certainly
Wild
taken
days.
boats from Portland to Victoria, and also from Portland to Bamfield.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Wow.
Bamfield was just such a beautiful place too. I mean, we just live
Yeah.
in the
Oh, I know.
best cruising ground, I think, in the world.
In the world.
Yeah, I really do.
That was, you know, part of the consideration of doing this podcast. I am always looking for boating content online, and podcasts and YouTube channels and so forth. And so much of the content out there is Florida or, you know, the Caribbean or
South Pacific
or circumnavigating the world, or, you know, all these things, which is great. I love that content. I consume it, you know, regularly, but not enough content up here. And I've never understood that. I scour the internet for content of people boating up here, because that is my same viewpoint. I think we live in boating paradise. I know you believe that too. And
Yes.
so it's just, I felt there was a very much a vacuum
We only had
of content up here.
MV Freedom.
Yeah. There's a
they
few
do a
channels,
great job.
of course, Travels with Jordy, and
I'm losing it. Cruising Sea Venture. They're gone now, but they did quite a few videos from.
there's been a few, but I've always
Not
have
enough.
felt that there's not enough. And because there's just so many destinations up here, and so many, like, as you recount your journeys, all I'm thinking in my head is, I want to do that. I want to do that. I want to do that. You know, I have so many things I want to do with my boat someday, you know, and boy, that word someday. But anyway,
Make someday happen.
yes, exactly.
You're still a young man.
Well,
You've got
yes.
time.
And I'm thinking of you know, song topics as well, and so so then you purchase this boat. Let's talk about this boat. Now, this is a Monk,
It's a Monk 38.
and it's a very unique.
It is, because it was Monk Senior's last design, which, as I was telling you earlier, he didn't make it through the design. He passed away. And so the baton was passed to Monk, to Junior.
Yep.
And he finished it. And there was 17 of these boats built, and all of them in Port Angeles. And
they're
I spent
fiberglass.
They're fiberglass
Right.
hulls. It's
Make
the
sure.
only fiberglass hull that is out there. Now, when you look at her, you're going to think she's a wood boat. And you're
And
also, right?
For 3 or 4 years now, as I've gone by in my dinghy, I'm thinking that's another wooden Monk.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it does look.
She's beautiful.
She is beautiful.
Yeah.
The idea here was that, the fishing industry was changing, and Monk Sr. was very much a visionary. And how many boats did he design? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But he decided that the fishing industry was going to be moving to mom and pop fish boats, right? And so he designed the boat with that in mind. 16 of them were built as fish boats, and they are still out there fishing today.
Wow.
Most of them in Southeast Alaska. Two of the other ones are here in Port Townsend.
That is so cool.
And then we have Kinzua. Kinzua was the only one that was purchased for a private vessel or private yacht. And so it does not have the big fish hold in the back. It has a cabin.
Nice.
And so, which we enjoy very much.
I'm sure it's better than sleeping in a fish hold.
Yes.
So that is, so you said 17 of them were built, and they're all, as far as you know, in service still?
Yes. Yeah. I just talked, unfortunately we lost Jody Kuhlman, who her and her husband built these boats.
Mm-hmm.
And she was a marine surveyor here for years in the Port Angeles and this area.
Mm.
And she recently passed, but she said all of them were still operating. She kept track of all of them.
Yeah.
And, the Sand Dollar here in Port Townsend, I don't know if you go to the commercial fish dock down there, the Sand Dollar's there. And there's another one, and I don't remember the name. The hull shape is, you recognize the hull shape.
Of course,
but
immediately.
Yeah, but it's...
What's the displacement?
I think we're close to 25,000 or 25 tons. Does that seem right? I'd have to
Around
take
50
a look at it
Well,
again.
this boat's about 50,000 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I
Yeah, she's
imagine
smaller.
with the Monk design, the hull built for commercial or for fishing, very sea kindly, can handle
Yeah.
A lot of crap out there, I bet.
Very sea kindly, except she has a round bottom.
Well,
and so you know what that means.
I can relate. Yeah, exactly.
And she carries approximately 600 gallons of diesel and 400 gallons of water. So she was built for a cruising vessel.
Long-range cruising.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the engine?
Yeah,
It's it's a Detroit.
Oh, well.
It's what they call the nickname is the Screaming Jimmy. And it just won't die.
Yeah.
And
671?
It's the 471.
Oh, so you've got, okay,
Yeah.
that's not
And
too bad
so
for fuel burn.
right. No, actually, she's very, very efficient.
Yeah.
So she's been a great boat for us, and hope to use her a lot more in the near future.
Well,
Here, here.
I've heard you go by,
Mhm.
and I am surprised that you have a screaming Jimmy, because she is quiet
Mhm,
for a Detroit.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not
good
too
old
bad.
2-cycle. You know.
Yeah, well, that thing will run forever
Probably
with
so.
good care, and
With
I'm
good
sure
care.
you take good care of it. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, to say that you're a fellow boat geek. I mean, we obviously bow down to your boat geekiness and your years of experience, knowledge, and expertise. Which, to go back to the Northwest School of Wooden Boat Building, you still do a 9-month course. Is that so? This deals with marine, electrical, and electronics, plumbing, diesel and outboard engines, corrosion, diesel and electric propulsion, steering and control, HVAC, and hydraulics. That's a lot.
Wow.
It
Well,
is.
that's a boat.
That's
Sounds
a
like
boat,
that's
It
right?
is a boat. It's everything except the hull and deck, right?
Yeah.
Except, fiberglass work, right?
Yeah.
So I can't. That's just so much knowledge and so much expertise that you have gained over the years. Could you talk a little bit about this course? What is somebody going into this course? What is the purpose? Are people that own a boat and just want to have more knowledge about their boat? Is it people that are wanting to get into the industry of either boat building or maintenance or other trades or so forth?
Or
I would
all
say
the
all
above.
the above.
All the above, yeah.
You
Sure.
know, I taught for ABYC. I was the lead instructor at ABYC for. I taught for them for years, and I got to the point where, for one thing, I got really tired of getting in an aluminum tube every other week and flying across the country, which you can understand. And the other thing is I really wanted to teach hands-on. Because everything that I was doing for ABYC was very focused on preparing students for their exams. And so teaching hands-on was a dream. And I happened to be out here teaching an ABYC class, and Betsy pulls me aside and said, any chance? I was already on their PAC committee, which is their program advisory committee. And I said, well, could I teach hands-on? She goes, you can do anything you want.
Please. That's great.
And so that's
Yeah,
where that
that's
all
great.
started. So we designed the program around new people getting into the industry. There was such a demand for technicians and for people that actually I got to say, they could do things with their hands and actually make things work and fix the problems that we have on boats. And so that was really cool. There was when she came to me, she goes, I don't have a building for you. We don't have a place yet. There's no curriculum. But I have $5,000 to start it. and so when we first got started,
What year was this?
that was probably 2017, 2018, right? And so when we got started, we started with a lot of my tools, a lot of my stuff, and now we have
Bootstrapped it.
yeah. And, so I worked on, all the curriculum, and we didn't have anything, but it was really cool to be able to do that and to be part of that process. And, it was Betsy and I. She was out there raising the money, and I was doing the other aspect of it.
You were teaching.
So the reason I asked the year is because, over the last few years, with the work on my boat, I've actually come and done a couple tours of your shop and the classrooms and so forth. And I can't believe that that didn't exist, in just a few years prior. I mean, that's unbelievable. It is such an amazing classroom experience now. You have so much available to these students in terms of just every
It's
aspect.
a dream.
Yeah, it is.
It really is a dream.
That's amazing. You guys have built something incredible just in a very short time.
We're going to
really cool.
have Betsy on the show soon,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully. She also moors her boat here in Port Ludlow, the Glory Bee.
Yes.
Wow, that has a story unto itself.
Yeah.
Beautiful,
100
beautiful,
100
beautiful
and some
boat.
year old boat, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
which is, yes, she's got an incredible story.
She's got a great story.
Yeah.
And all of these areas of expertise, Darren and I have been talking that each one of those areas, you know, corrosion, that is a show, an episode
yeah.
unto itself.
Yeah.
And we will be having you back
If you're
often as
willing.
we
Sure.
can.
Well, I think it's important because it is the most misdiagnosed, misunderstood issue facing anybody that owns a boat. And so there's, like Darren and I were talking earlier, there's so many people, there's so much misinformation, pseudoscience and fallacies out there about corrosion that is amazing.
Well, and not only that, I mean, you can, you know, just like me, you can get into boat ownership with no knowledge of
There's
anything.
no prerequisite.
Right.
Yeah,
You
so-
got to have the money and you're good.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
literally. And so coming into boating, you know, somewhat recently over the last 5 years, my interest has grown a lot. I didn't know about any of this stuff.
You didn't know what you don't know.
That's a saying that I've
Isn't
said all
that-
my life. You
yeah.
don't know what you don't know.
Yeah,
And that
yeah.
certainly pertains to boats.
Yeah.
And being a family man and caring about the people that we're going out with, you know, I learned, wow, there's a lot for me to know to
Yep.
take my family out on the water and to be safe. And so, yeah,
So we got
Isn't
lots
that
of
part of-
shows coming up.
we have lots of shows coming up.
But isn't that part of what we love about boating?
Oh, yeah.
Because there is so much to know. There's so much to learn, and you are never going to get bored.
Oh yeah.
No.
yeah.
And so
It's a
there's
whole
just,
world.
I mean, you know, you could spend a lifetime and you're never going to know it all.
Yeah. And
For
I
sure.
hope to spend the rest of my lifetime learning this stuff. And we hope to have you on regularly to teach us about this. So, yeah, I mean, that's just a plethora of topics and very in depth. I mean, every single one of these programs. In fact, probably even before I met you, I was considering going to the.
Yeah, I remember you
Yeah.
were talking about that.
Yeah. And that wasn't to get into the trade. That was just because
To understand.
to understand.
Right.
I wanted to take that's why I was asking, are there people there that are just, you know, do you have old guys like me taking it just so they learn more about
There's a couple we can allow in. The issue is that our accreditor, and we choose to be accredited, our accreditor says that 70% of the people that go through our program have to work in the industry, or not necessarily in the marine industry, but in an industry utilizing
Employing that
skills
skill. Yeah.
That makes
that
sense.
they learn there. And that's a high bar. I mean, 70%, you know? And so that says that I can only have a couple people
Sure.
that just want to come in because I've got to shoot for that target of 70%. So, yeah.
But that's great that you have not only a top-notch program, but it seems like the school has been growing and you have a steady students coming in and out and getting into the industry. Obviously, Port Townsend being one of the best places to have a wooden boat building school.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
On the
yeah.
planet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, we just graduated 17 more students this last Friday.
that's awesome.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I've actually had some of the graduates work on Iron Feather.
Oh,
And,
cool.
Yeah, and so you know, I couldn't be more confident with the students that are coming out of your school because I've seen the program. I've been there several times, like I said, and just amazing. So congratulations on
Thank you.
building such a great program.
It's been fun.
Yeah, and an asset to not only Port Townsend and the local area, but just the whole boating industry.
And for folks out there that would like to look into it, it's the Northwest School of Wooden Boat Building. We'll put the website address right here.
nwswb.edu.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. Check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of history there. You can see a lot of insight into what the school does, the programs. And like I said, if I didn't have a full-time job and this side gig and all the other in my family, I'd be there,
Yeah.
you know, if they would have me, because obviously there's that ratio. But anyway, we do want to talk about corrosion and especially marine electrical and electronics.
Yeah,
and
at some point.
Yeah. So, well, do we want to get into that today? Do we? Want
I
to
think
get into
we
that
want
now?
to. I think we should move on into the topic at hand,
Mhm.
which is one of the whole reasons for creating this podcast is to educate people.
Yes.
And this particular topic, you had never heard about it until you heard Kevin's story.
Yeah.
I had never heard about it either. And every boater in the country, in the world,
Should know.
needs to know about this. So
Absolutely.
I think we should probably just dive
Let's dive
right
in.
in. And then we'll have Kevin back to talk about all this other fun stuff.
All right. So, Kevin, in 1999,
Mm-hmm.
an incident happened that changed your life. Can you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, without going into all of the details of the accident itself, because you can see
We can play
those
the
resources
video.
are available. But, you know, our son Lucas was electrocuted while he was swimming in the water he was heading to get out of the boat, out of the water near a boat that was leaking 120 volts AC into the water.
Bright, friendly, and interested in everything. That describes Lucas Ritz.
Kind of like me, very, very curious. He would often take things apart, and even at 8 years old, he would come up with different components that he had found and said that he'd taken apart, didn't know how to get it back together. Very curious, very loving.
Lucas had a special bond with both his older brother Ian and younger sister Kyra, but of the three, he was the most outgoing and had lots of friends. His mom recalls learning to roll with his spontaneity.
Oftentimes, we'd be sitting down for dinner, and here would come someone down the dock. We're like, oh, yeah, nice to see you, a friend of ours. And they're like, oh, I'm just coming for dinner. Luke said that, I was invited. I'm like, okay, throw another patty on the grill.
At that time, their home was their sailboat. Lucas shared his parents' love of the water and sailing to visit new places, and he dreamed of becoming a boat captain. When the family was not traveling, home base was a marina near Scappoose, Oregon. August 1st, 1999 seemed like any other hot summer day, and friends asked if the boys could go swimming.
Somebody had brought a big inner tube down. They suggested we all hop on the inner tube and float down with the current down to the end of the dock, hop out, bring it back, do it again a couple times.
And of course, the normal caveats were, number one, everybody will have their life jackets on, of course. And number two, Mom will be walking along the dock as you guys are floating down, making sure that everything is as safe as it can be. So they set out to do this, and I continued working on the boat.
Me and two friends hopped on and started going, and my brother Luke had wanted to come with us, but we had already taken off, so he jumped in and was swimming after us. And he got up to us, and we were trying to pull him into the inner tube, and just really couldn't quite get him on. The tube was slipping over as we tried to pull him onto it, so we tried for about a minute and a half, 2 minutes or so, and we couldn't get him on there. So then he was like, you know what, don't worry about it, I'm going to swim back to the dock, and I'll meet you guys at the end, and we'll walk down, and we'll do it again.
They went past a boat. I walked past on the other side, and then I saw that he was coming in toward the dock to get out of the water, and all of a sudden he screamed, and then he rolled over on his life jacket. The life jacket supported his head and kept him up out of the water, and I thought, wait a minute, what's going on? So I ran down the finger toward him, but the current was carrying him, so I went back around that boat to the next dock finger.
I was working away on the boat, and I heard a commotion. So I stuck my head out the companionway, and somebody yelled at me, "Where's Cheryl?" Cheryl being a nurse. And then I saw some people running, so I, of course, got out of the boat and went down there as quick as I could.
When my mother yelled for help, we all jumped in the water to start swimming towards him. As we're getting closer, the water just starts to pulse, kind of, for lack of a better word for it. It felt like the water was just vibrating very, very quickly. And it really caused me to pause for a moment because I'd never felt anything like that before. As we got closer and closer, it became, you could start to feel tingling on the skin, and it was getting very strong.
But the current carried the boys away, so Cheryl took action.
And I jumped into the water at the other end of that finger, and immediately I felt like I couldn't move, and I thought, oh, I'm just afraid. I mean, because I knew something wasn't right.
I see that there are two people pulling someone out of the water, and I recognize the life jacket. I'm very puzzled as to why he is apparently unconscious. First thing I do is check for respiration, and I didn't detect anything. Then I checked for heartbeat. I couldn't detect any. Hoping that I'm doing this wrong.
Kevin and paramedics tried to revive Lucas before rushing him to the hospital. Friends kept Ian and Kyra as Kevin and Cheryl left.
Arrived at the hospital, and the doctors, some of whom we knew, and they did everything they could, and they came out and said, we're sorry. Nothing we could do. And I said, what happened? Explain this. They said, we have no explanation for this.
And so that was obviously a huge tragedy, and something, having been a boater my entire life, never hearing of that, didn't I thought of all the other dangers that I perceived to be out there, but never thought about this electricity being in the water. And it's such a insidious thing, because there's no way to know that it's happening unless you're doing specialized testing and have the knowledge to do so. There's no visual, there's no audible, there's no way to know that this is occurring. And so it was absolutely life-changing, and it forced me to start really looking at boat wiring and trying to decipher, well, so what are the standards? What are the rules around boats? And of course, found out very quickly there really are no rules. And then, so how are boats being wired, and why are they being wired that way? And I noticed right off the bat there was very little consistency, even from manufacturer model to model, of consistent wiring. And so I had to get educated, because I needed to understand, how could this happen? How could something like that occur?
How could it happen in 1999? I feel like that was just, around the corner yesterday. And weren't these accidents happening? Wasn't there somebody else, out there shouting from the mountaintops?
It was kind of mysterious.
I think it was kind of mysterious, and I
Yeah.
think it was commonly misdiagnosed. Lucas was the very first documented case where there was an actual a kind of appropriate for the time investigation done, which I was very much a part of, because I didn't buy the line from law enforcement saying, we're sorry your son drowned. His face, he was never, he had a life jacket on, supported his face the whole time. His face was never in the water. How do you drown if you're not in the water, and all this type of stuff? So I did not accept what law enforcement told me, and I continued to push the issue, and I continue to push it to this day. And so there was plenty of speculation about this prior. When I started doing some research, I started finding stories all over the place about strange drownings, very, strong swimmers, and, no alcohol, no drugs involved, all the normal things. I hate to say this, but where law enforcement goes, and every case, unfortunately, that we know of today, for the most part, there was a witness. There was someone that heard the victim saying something, I feel electricity, I'm being shocked, or they reached to grab someone and got shocked themselves. So yeah, it's just one of those things. And insidious is the best word to describe it, because there's so many things about it, you know, that make it hard.
It's not uncommon. I mean, or it's not. I don't want to say it's common, but it occurs often enough that it's a huge issue.
It does, unfortunately, and we don't know how often it occurs.
How many times, yeah.
Because the vast majority of first responders, and that's why I put my focus on first responders in the beginning when, you know, I started trying to deal with this issue to educate them. But they don't know how to investigate this. Yeah. They don't have I mean, you know, you need to have someone that knows about marine electrical around to really diagnose what's going on here. Most of these cases were just chalked up as, you know, strange drowning. To this date, there's no post-mortem evidence that electricity is involved. Nothing.
Interesting.
Okay. The other thing is that when these accidents occur, you know, who is there to do this investigation? Who is keeping track of this information? There's not, you know, everybody thinks, oh, well, somebody in the government's keeping. No, there's nothing. You can look up electrocutions in the United States. We have an average of 400 electrocutions a year. Okay. You know, does that include electric shock drowning? Probably not.
Right.
You know, I don't think it does.
That term, electric shock drowning, did that exist in 1999?
You know, it was coined shortly after that. And the reason for that was because as, you know, Lucas's case was the first document. Now, Lucas didn't touch anything. You know, that's really hard concept for people to understand. He touched nothing, but he was electrocuted. There was enough current passing through his heart that it stopped his heart immediately. You know, I did the CPR for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And
and it's fresh water.
well, I want to be careful there.
Right.
I really do, because I hear that a lot. Oh, we don't have to worry about, you know, because it's a freshwater issue,
right?
You know, and there's a lot of misconception about, you know, electricity and water to begin with. I mean, you know, is freshwater more dangerous than saltwater? Most people would say, oh, saltwater's got to be more dangerous. And it is the opposite. Freshwater is more dangerous because of the resistivity of that water. So it builds up voltage gradients in the water. And if you understand how electricity moves, you can understand how, in my case, how Lucas was electrocuted while touching absolutely nothing, you know. And so, but again, Lucas was the first documented case of someone electrocuted. Prior to that, most of the victims, and where this phrase comes from, the victim would enter the field of electricity. They are starting to get shocked. Have you either of you ever been shocked? You know what that feels? You understand what happens to your muscles, right? Your muscles constrict.
Just like that.
Yeah.
And you can't stop.
Can you swim? And when your muscles are constricting, like you're not, so that's where electric shock drowning came from. Many victims would enter the area, the field of electricity, their muscles would constrict. And of course, if your muscles constrict, what can you do?
Yeah.
I mean, if you get very far into that field, it even paralyzes, you know, the diaphragm, and you can't call for help. You can't breathe. You can't do anything. God. So yeah.
I've been shocked, electrocuted a few times in my life. Serious enough on one where I got burnt.
Wow.
On another one where when I was a kid, I stuck something in a socket and blew everything up, you know. So, but yeah, I remember that feeling, and you just constrict, and you can't do anything.
Yeah. Can't do anything
until it stops.
Yeah.
So did you receive pushback in this investigation, and do you still receive pushback today in terms of this?
I received a pushback until we were able to demonstrate. I mean, I was told by law enforcement that my son drowned. I was told by the coroner the next morning in the process of the autopsy that the preliminary results it was a drowning. And I said, is there any water in Lucas's lungs? Well, no. There's no water. And then, So the pushback that I have gotten, I guess I would say, is based on people not understanding, not understanding electricity. I'm amazed that we all live in a completely electric world, and yet many of us know very, very little. You don't even know how it moves from point A to point B, or why it moves, or anything else. Yeah. So the pushback is from any boater that is like, well, certainly it's not my boat that's the problem.
Right?
How could it be my boat? I spent a lot of money for this boat. The pushback has been, as over the years, as there's been more and more cases, and it's been more and more publicized, and it's now kind of whenever we have one of these, which we have them every year, it's usually publicized nationally and everything else. And so ABYC eventually took on the issue and said, so we're going to do something about it. I was involved with all those meetings and everything. And ABYC came up with a standard requiring what's called an ELCI, an equipment leakage circuit interrupter. It trips at 30 milliamps and 100 milliseconds. You can think of this as a GFCI for your boat. Okay. And it's not for human touch protection like a GFCI is. It trips at 5 milliamps. It trips at 30 milliamps. And they'll have people say to me, well, 30 milliamps, that's too much. Well, 30 milliamps going into the water is not going to create a scenario where you're going to have, skeletal muscular paralysis at 30 milliamps. As we move above, then we can have those issues. So 30 milliamps is actually a European standard. They've been doing this since they started putting electricity on water, by the way. Wow. And it works, and it's worked great.
So at up to 30 milliamps, then you will feel what? Tingling? Can you feel it?
Sure. I mean, now 30 milliamps into the water does not necessarily constitute 30 milliamps traveling through your body.
Right, okay.
Because it dissipates as it...
It does. And, that's the big difference between fresh and salt water. And I want to make that point really clear.
Sure.
Let me ask you guys, are you okay with your through hulls, your underwater metals, your propeller shaft assemblies being a conductor? Is it okay to have electricity in the water?
No.
Of course.
I mean, how much electricity is okay?
Right.
And so what ABYC first and now National Electric Code has come down and said, hey, we're going to stop this at 30 milliamps. And I'm happy with 30 milliamps, because it won't create a hazardous situation. The problem is these devices called ground fault protection devices, whether it's a GFCI or an ELCI, do pop. And when I say pop, what I mean is it deprives a vessel of electricity. And they don't fault strip. It's very, very seldom to have what everybody terms as a false trip. How they work, if you understand the dynamics involved here, as electricity moves up and down conductors, it creates a magnetic field, right? And you've got, I'm going to put it in layman's terms, you got a Gazinski and you got a Gazowski, okay? Right? So the Gazinski creates a magnetic field turning, one direction, and the Gazowski creates a magnetic field turning the other direction. So guess what? Those two magnetic fields cancel each other out. So what a GFCI or an ELCI does is have what we call a CT or current transformer, commonly known as a donut, okay, because it's round and it's got some wires, and the two conductors fit in there, and they are looking for this magnetic field, which would indicate an imbalance.
Okay.
And that's how they work.
Wow.
So how do you have a false thing? So I don't want to get too technical here, but you get the idea.
Right.
And salt water, because it's more conductive, considerably more conductive than fresh water, that it does not develop the same voltage gradients that you would have in fresh water. They do develop voltage gradients, but they're further apart. And electricity moving, basically moves when you have a conductive pathway, okay, and two different voltages. And in spite of what Benjamin Franklin told us, that it moves from the positive to the negative, we now know that it moves from the negative to the positive. That's it. That's why electricity moves. And so as these gradients are very close or tight together, it's easy for the human body to bridge those gradients as it is in fresh water. Not so easy in salt water where it's further apart.
But it can still happen.
It can still happen. Here's probably the one thing I'll say about that, and we can top off with that topic there. But you ever been in a marina during the wintertime? Do you notice that what can happen? Well, right here in Port Ludlow, you notice the ice forming on top. Here's the bottom line. When it rains, when we get fresh water on top, on salt water, it's lighter. It's going to be on top. And so are you okay with your children, loved ones, whoever, being in the water when you have a couple feet of fresh water on top of salt water that, now we're right back to that freshwater environment. And so the pushback that I've received, I think for the most part, is people that don't truly understand what's at risk here and how it works. Yeah.
Well, you start at not understanding the average American doesn't know jack about electricity, and then you put water and boats and shore power, and it's
and also just, hey, I saw them doing it, or it's easy to get into something like this and proceed without educating yourself and knowing the potential dangers out there. In a marina like here at Ludlow, do you think right now there's a boat out there?
Absolutely.
It happens.
I've been in literally hundreds and hundreds of marinas across the country. I was involved with the initial Coast Guard study about electricity in water. I can get the name of that if you guys want that, because it's still available from the Office of Boating Safety.
Send it to us, and we'll put it up and link to it.
It'll really help out if you have insomnia, because it's data. But we went around collecting data all over the country, and it was Jim Schaefer and Captain Dave Rifkin, and I got involved in a couple. But basically went around energizing vessels all over the place and testing what those gradients looked like, how far out they were reaching, and all of that type of stuff. Interesting data. But I've been in marinas all over the country and outside the country, and I've never been in a marina that I haven't found electricity leaking ever.
I mean, that's, man. Okay, so I always look at these divers that are going down and doing these boats. So are they risking?
Well, here's the good news, and I've worked with a lot of the different dive associations over the years and talked to them and educated them about that. Here's the good news. One thing, they're wearing a non-conductive suit.
Yes.
To start with, for the most part.
Right.
And so a lot of divers will tell me, "Oh yeah, I can feel it as I start getting close, so I'll just get up and turn the boats off." I do.
At least they know.
Well, yeah, I don't know that all of them know. And there's some, I know that there's some divers out there, even in our area, that are saying, "Oh, this isn't a big deal. We don't need to worry about this." It's a very different thing to have a non-conductive suit, a chainmail suit, if you will, right, around you, than not. And if you got to understand how electricity moves and why it moves and everything else to really have a concept of how this is going to impact you. So with a diver, you're in a lot better shape. And we have divers that dive,
regularly here.
On a regular basis.
Yeah.
And I talk to a lot of them, and they're always, most of them are, understanding that this exists, and they have felt it, they sense it, and they've just been very lucky that they haven't been in the wrong situation at the wrong time.
And they probably were like, "Oh, so that's what that was that I felt."
Yeah, I feel a lot of times with dangerous possibilities, if something hasn't happened to a person, they think, "Oh, it's not going to happen."
That's human nature, though, isn't it?
Right.
Don't we all feel that
absolutely.
way?
Myself included.
My car's never been broken into, so cars don't really get broken into that often,
Yeah. Well, if people want to educate themselves on this more, which I strongly advise anybody that's a boater or around boats or marinas,
lakes, rivers,
anywhere,
coastal, anywhere,
hot tubs. I mean,
you
got any place, swimming pools, any place where there's
water
electricity
and electricity come together.
So you founded the Electric Shock Drowning Prevention Association. You can check it out yourself at electricshockdrowning.org. There's videos, there's information. It's a very well done website, and will certainly help educate you. Which thank you for getting out there and turning a tragedy into something that will hopefully and potentially stop other tragedies from happening like that. Again, as Darren pointed out at the beginning, we're all about the education. I mean, boats are fun, and we want to have a good time and be excited and happy about boats too. But it's a lot more than just, do I have enough money for a boat or that boat or whatever. They are dangerous, and there is a lot of safety that, besides electrical systems, all of you boat owners out there know all of the safety that is involved with taking a boat out and owning a boat and taking your loved ones on boats. So you are doing an enormous service to the entire boating community worldwide, and then also huge service to our local boating community and the boat building and the knowledge of all these young people that are out there, including somebody that came from systems and did give me some red flags on my electrical system. Good for her. She knew what she was doing. And so your students are out there doing the work that you have set them forth to do. So thank you, sir, for all that you do.
You bet.
And for sure, we are going to have you back if you will,
subject yourselves
to
another
another
conversation
for
with
another
the boat
geeky
geeks.
boat conversation.
No, it's great stuff, and
a fishing boat just came in.
Yeah, we can feel it.
It's so funny because the cameras have their own internal stabilizers.
Yeah.
And I'm editing, and all of a sudden the camera's doing something, and they're like, the cameras don't move, but they're compensating. So that's what's happening.
That was a fireboat that just.
Oh, that's
what happened.
I love our office.
They sometimes leave in a hurry. And come back out.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely.
But I just want to add this, that this tragedy happened to us, but we still absolutely love boating, and we're going to continue boating, and some of the very best people in the world are boaters. So that's one of the things that drives us there, right?
Absolutely, man. Well, Kevin, it was a pleasure. It's always a pleasure talking to you. Maybe someday I'll be lucky enough to take the course, if I have the time and there's a slot open. But otherwise, if you're interested in any possibility of wooden boat work or electrical systems or engines,
mechanical, anything about boats,
I would definitely recommend checking out their website, nwswb.edu. It's just a great program, and if maybe an excuse to come out to Port Townsend in the area, like we mentioned in the beginning, beautiful boating around here, and worth checking out for sure. Kevin, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We'll see you around on the dock.
You bet.
See you on the docks.
Okay.